Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Bilingual Show, the Gloria. This is Gloria Goldberg, the founder of the podcast, the Bilingual Show, the Gloria. I already changed names. The Bilingual Show, the Gloria, the podcast, the Bilingual Show, the Gloria. And today is the very first show episode that I'm gonna do in English because a long time I had to stop in Spanish in English because I had a lot of things going on. And I said to myself, you know what? I think it's time to start in English. And I have the opportunity to have an amazing guest that he said to me, let's do it. And I said, I cannot lose this opportunity. I cannot miss this opportunity to interview my guest today. And I said, no, we have to do it. And this is a sign for me to start the English version. So, for the people just starting to know me, my name is Gloria Goldberg, and I base my shows in talking about depression, anxiety, and PTSD in a holistic way, a natural way to always make you feel better. And why I talk about depression, anxiety, and PTSD, because I do suffer from those three issues in my life. And why? Because when I was 25 years old, I was kidnapped in my country and I was held in captivity for 90 days. And of course, I met the depression, I met the anxiety. I still have some anxiety here and there in some situations. And the PTSD, the post stress traumatic syndrome that happens or occurs when you go through a severe trauma. And I do have that, but in my show, I try to talk about these three subjects in a very natural way, in a holistic way, for you to feel better and for you to understand that you don't need to go for a huge trauma for you to feel trauma in your life. And I think everybody, in a way, we already tried trauma. We already went through a trauma. Even when you're born, is the first trauma that you have is come out from the canal of your own mother, and that part is very stressful. And we don't remember that because we forget, because we are infants and we don't remember that trauma. But everybody, in a sense, have a little or bigger or small and medium traumas, and people deal different way and different form in the traumas. And my mission here is to present you a lot of topics that we talk about trauma in so many things that can cause traumas, in so many things that you can be healed in the way you can feel better. So, so today I have a very special guest, and I'm gonna start. I decide to start my new season in English with my guest, Ronald Fuchs. And why? Because today we're going to talk about Tantra. And for me, Tantra is one of the pillars or the base for healing. And I'm not going to tell you exactly why, but he's going to tell us why. But for me, I said, you know what? Let's start from the intimacy of ourselves. Let's start from the sex parts of ourselves. Let's go deep in ourselves and let's dig this subject because people get confused about Tantra. People think that Tantra is very sexual and weird. And when you get initiated on this and you understand the concept of Tantra, you start honoring your body and you start respecting your body and start going into your roots and trying to heal. You heal a lot. And I initiate myself last year in Mexico and Yucatan, going to my first festival of Tantra. And I had that like a misconception, like thinking like, oh my God, what is gonna like this is gonna be weird. And because I didn't have too much information. And when I went to this festival, Tantra festival in Mexico, it was amazing. It was like a discovering of myself. And I remember I healed a lot of myself, and I love that experience. But I don't know too much about it. So I bring the expert is Ronald Fuchs. He's 40 years in Tantra. He started with rebirthing, and then now he's full gear with the Tantra. So let's bring him in and let's give him a welcome to the bilingual show de Gloria. Ronald. Oh, I think I missed him. So let's wait for a little bit so he come back. We are having a lot of issues with the connection. I did have a lot of issues with my microphones, my system. I don't know what's going on. And you have to have a backup. Here he is.
Okay,
Hey,
I'm
Ronald.
back. I had suddenly disappeared.
It's okay. Welcome to the bilingual show, the Gloria.
Thank you, Gloria, and thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure talking to you over the distance.
That's awesome. So, Ronald, for people that wants to know who we are, let's start with the location. Where is your location right now, and what time is now?
Well, right now I'm in beautiful Barcelona, and it's not the summertime, so it's not so warm, but it's still a lovely city by the Mediterranean Sea. And I arrived here yesterday. In fact, I live in the UK in Eastbourne, in the south coast of England, and I came here to do a course over the weekend precisely, and then I'm going to stay for another week or 10 days enjoying the city, because I lived here for many, many years, and it's always nice to be back and enjoy the places that I love and that I used to frequent when I was here, you know. So it's a great, and the time difference is I think it's 6 hours, isn't it?
Yeah.
Over here we are now 20 past 9 in the evening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm in my location here is in Florida, the United States of America. I live at 45 minutes up to from Miami, and I live in the city. The name is Broward. For people that don't
uh,
know where's Broward, is in Florida, and right now it's 3:16 p.m. So Ronald, let's start with the subject. I want you to tell everybody, because the people who are in my path and seeing my shows, they I like to explain to them in a very simple way what is tantra, because people have a lot of confused about that, and a lot of people don't know. So why I want you to please tell everybody what is tantra.
well, Tantra, even the word, when you come to the word Tantra, it has several meanings, but the origin, the very origin of the word, is the loom that you use to weave the fabric. And you know, every weave is like there are two energies that come together, are two tendencies that come together. So the word Tantra, what it means is like the interaction, the weaving of the masculine and the feminine, which is the two primordial forces in the universe. And when they come together, they form the whole, you know, and life happens and aliveness happens and everything that comes with it. You know, a while ago when you were talking about healing, uh, Tantra is a vehicle for great, very deep healing, in fact, you know. And, you know, when you spoke about trauma, you know, um, like even birth trauma, you said when, you know, we are born through, come through the birth canal, sometimes we get stuck before are able to come out. And whatever happens after, whatever happens in that process, after, as you well said, we don't remember. But the fact that we don't remember doesn't mean to say that that doesn't have a big influence in our lives, you know, because very often that's a moment of super hyper aliveness and being the beginning of life, being in being it the beginning of life, we draw a lot of conclusions about what life is, what the world is, and so on and so forth. And these kind of engraved in the subconscious mind. So even though we don't remember them consciously, they do have tremendous influence in the way we interpret reality, the way we see reality, you know. So anything that's based on deep healing, including Tantra, uh, especially when we work with energy as we do in Tantra, a lot of these issues and a lot of the feelings and the level of energy that's connected to those things that are in the subconscious come up to the surface, and then it's an excellent opportunity to let go of past hurt and past wound, and that's the whole of the healing process. And the whole thing, it, the essence of it all is to be able to embrace higher levels of energy. And everything in life, it can be measured as energy. You know, how much love we experience in our life, how much intimacy, when you talked about intimacy, how much intimacy we can open to in our life, how much prosperity, how much success, how much whatever. It's all can be measured in energy, you know. So in a healing process, our capacity to embrace a lot more energy and higher levels of energy, more potent and powerful energy, will improve all our life on all levels, you know. And this is basically how Tantra works. Now, because when we talk about Tantra, the coming together of both the energies, the masculine and the feminine energy, that's present in all the universe, in all the manifested universe, you know. So it's a part of the whole manifestation. So in a sense, when we open to that interaction, to the dance, we are participating in a macrocosmic dance that allows us to embrace the universe and embody the beauty of the creation of the universe. And this is like a massive, huge celebration, you know. And very often, the reason people are, or, or very often, without, when we don't know, we are scared of things that we don't know, is basically because it embraces sexuality. You know, it's one of the few, if not the only, spiritual path that embraces sexuality, and it's part of the of the path towards sexual enlightenment in that respect. Um, and then sometimes, as you well shared, you know, when you go to a tantric course or a tantric experience, it's like you start wondering, my God, what are we going to do? You know, what's
Yes,
going to
yes.
happen here, and so on and so forth. But like anything, you know, when you get to know it, and little by little, especially when you're guided by good teachers who've been working with uh, you know, I call it a sacred aspect of Tantra, you know, the spiritual, the sacred, and so on and so forth. Because this encounter, this meeting, this coming together of the feminine and the masculine is huge. It is a sacred space that you're embracing, that you're opening up to. So it has to be sacred, yes.
Yes. Okay, so I want you to tell everybody the story how you started to know Tantra and how you became a teacher for 40 years. And I want you to
Mm.
tell the story in like a simple way so we can have more time to talk to go through another subjects that I want to talk about.
Lovely. Yes. Basically, I was always, since my teenage years, I was interested in spirituality, and I was familiar with yoga and reading some of the great enlightened books like Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramhansa Yogananda and so on and so forth. Those types of books, you know. And then I met this young girl, you know, I was maybe 19 or 20 or something like that. And we had we had a sexual experience which was very, very powerful, you know, and very deep. And the level of energy was so high, so powerful that became a spiritual experience for me, you know. And after that, she gave me a little gift, which is a symbolic, really. It's a tantric image. And she said that we experienced last night is called Tantra. And that was it. And in a sense, she was like an angel that appeared in my life in a moment of my life where I was seeking for new things and I was seeking for my particular spiritual path and so on and so forth. I hadn't yet found my particular way. And she brought this message to me. And that word, the word, and what in my mind in that moment represented was huge for me. It really vibrated in my soul. And as from that moment, I started becoming more and more interested in Tantra. And where I lived at the time, there wasn't a lot of books or material about Tantra. And the internet, it hadn't yet arrived in the world, and so on and so forth. So it was difficult to access information, you know. Later on, living in the UK, in London, I came across, there was a lot more literature, you know, London being the cultural city that it is and the cultural center that it is. And I started finding books and reading more about Tantra and expanding my knowledge and my awareness of Tantra. And then finally in 1980, I came across a tantric teacher that she came to do a seminar for us in London. She was from Belgium. And she used to do retreats in the south of France. And I participated of that retreat. And that was in 1981. And it was my first experience of Tantra. And it was a retreat of 15 days, and we were 20 men and 20 women. And everything happened, you know, in those days, depending who did it or led the training. But very often Tantra in those days was quite wild, you know, and then things changed later on. So became like my first group experience in Tantra, you know, and I became fascinated by it, you know. Nevertheless, I was doing rebirthing in those days, which is based on breathing and healing and so on. And I felt rebirthing was more for me at the time, you know, but I kept on, you know, experimenting with what I had learned in the course. I kept on reading books, and whenever there was an interesting person that came to London to do a course on Tantra, if I could, I would participate, and I kept on going deeper and deeper into it. And then finally, already in 1993, I did an experience already living in Barcelona. I participated in a course of a couple of people who were very serious tantric teachers, you know, from Switzerland of all places. And then I felt, oh my God, this is a lot more serious than the experience that I had had in 1981. You know, so it renewed my interest as a possibility of becoming a tantric teacher. And then, of course, I met Margo Anand, she's one of the great teachers in the Western world of Tantra. And that was in 1995. And then I felt more and more that, okay, it's time to train as a teacher. So I finally chose, like, out of all the schools of Tantra in the world, I really liked, I tuned in to Charles and Caroline Muir. And with them, I trained between the year 98 and 2002, and became an advanced tantric teacher in their school, you know. And since then, I started working a lot less with rebirthing, a lot more with Tantra. And uh, I'm working with these principles and these practices that I love so much in several countries in the world. I had already opened my teaching in many different countries through rebirthing, trained many rebirthers in several countries around the world. And then, as I talked about Tantra, and my students uh, perceived that I had a passion for Tantra. They said, "Oh gosh, we would like to maybe learn Tantra for you from you. Could we do a training at some point?" And that little by little, I started doing Tantra courses, and then rebirthing kind of stayed behind a little bit, and then. But the principles of rebirthing, which were very powerful, very transforming and healing for me in my life and in my own process, I incorporated obviously all of that in my line of tantra, as it were. But now I'm dedicated, as from maybe the year 2001, 2002, I'm dedicated only to tantra, and that's what I do. Now I don't travel so much, especially after the pandemic. I decided that it was time maybe to be a little quiet and spend more time at home rather than traveling all the time. And that was one of the blessings of the pandemic for me personally, to realize uh, how nice it was to spend time at home as well. So now my intention is to travel less, but I'm still working, especially here in Spain. I come quite often, regularly, in fact, every couple of months. And my other important work is in Brazil. So, and as soon as traveling becomes a little easier, my intention, probably towards the end of this year, is to go back and resume my work over there in Brazil. So that's a bit of my history with Tantra, yes?
Wow. Okay, so I do you remember in the beginning I said about the traumas and the healings, and in my experience that I've been working in a lot of healing in myself, when I found Tantra, I said to myself, wow, I why we don't like start from tantra and start healing from here, because tantra is like the base for like what I can see as the base is the most intimate part of us.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, I understand when you walk your path, you going through classes of life, the classes that you need in the moment. But I said, wow, if I found Tantra before, I probably will accelerate a little bit more my journey. But of course, it's not the way we want it, it's the way life is for us. But what do you think, like, to start healing, to start like knowing Tantra or rebirthing, or more about Tantra?
Yes, I think it's important. Tantra can be the start of a spiritual path, and self-improvement path, and working on oneself and healing and so on and so forth, which is all that we are looking for, really. And I think Tantra can be a very good starting point for that, as you well said, the sexual energy. Because uh, for example, in rebirthing, in rebirthing, one uses breathing to open up to energy, and then the fact of the energy circulating through our body and through our minds, and moves a lot of things, a lot of feelings, memories, things that come up from the subconscious mind, as we mentioned before, and then all the realizations that we have about of certain experiences that sometimes we were never aware of, and they come up to the surface, and then we see the type of conclusions we made based on that, and how that is influencing our life. So once, and that process is, I think, it's the basis of all healing. It's like transforming the inside for the outer uh, aspects of our life to gradually transform. But if we don't change the inside, we can struggle and struggle and struggle to change the outside. But if we haven't changed the inside, there's no way transformation will really happen, you know. And as you say, you know, Tantra can be a very, very good starting point because it's the sexual energy that one works with Tantra and one learns to access and to expand in the body and transmute and all of that, is the most powerful energy, the most powerful form of energy in the body, you know. So if we can actually learn to access that energy, to tune into that energy, to feel it, to feel safe with it, and to not feel that we have to immediately act it out in some crazy way or whatever, you know. We just learn to relax into the energy and accept it and feel the beauty of it and the power of it, you know. And then the other thing also is that, you know, throughout centuries and probably thousands of years, sexual energy has always been repressed, has always been associated, you know, to sin and guilt and, you know, and all
And
of that.
violent, and also violent too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, yesterday, because yesterday, I suppose over there too, but I think all over the world, yesterday was the Day of Women, International
Right.
Day of Women. Yeah.
International Day of Women, yeah.
Yeah, and yesterday I arrived in Barcelona, and that the taxi driver was telling me that in the center of Barcelona there was this huge manifestation, hundreds and hundreds of women, like, you know, that they marched down some streets and so on and so forth. And then in the evening, I went out, and then on the way back home, I took the tube, the metro, the underground. And then there was one person, because apparently this manifestation or this march happened in the morning, but then again it happened in the evening. And then there were some girls that were coming back, getting on the underground, and one of them had a sign that obviously she had been carrying around in the march, you know. And he said, "Can't you understand it? Sex is," she said, "you would never dream of forcing someone to have tea, would you? If they don't want to have tea, you would never dream of that. Well, can't you understand it? Sex is the same." You know,
Yes.
it's like obviously the whole thing of very often, you know, men imposing their will.
Yes.
If they feel like they want to have sex, then they impose their will and on the woman, and very often that can end up, if not in a rape, in a feeling of having been raped, you know. And
Yes.
so I read that the sign, and gosh, I thought, yeah, it's true, it's true. I
It's true.
felt I felt there was a difference, though, you know, that tea, if okay, it's nice to share a cup of tea, but um, it's something that you enjoy by yourself. Sex is not something you enjoy by yourself. You can, of course, but it's not a tenth as good if you experience it with someone else. So then that's where the whole thing comes in, you know, the pressure that very often men can have on women to get this pleasure out of them. Yeah. And so then there is a lot of, yeah, as you said, violence. There is a lot of guilt as well, you know. What the sexual energy, even though it's generated from the base chakra and the second chakra, both chakras, but the chakra that is the chakra is the center of energy, right? So in the body. So the second chakra is the chakra of sexuality. And what most opens that chakra is pleasure. And what most inhibits and closes that chakra is guilt. So there it is, you know, we are always like looking for this guilt, but at the same time, there's all this feeling of looking for this pleasure, but at the same time, there's all this feeling of guilt, you know, coming, and it comes from religion, it comes from sexual repression, it comes from all the negative associations that we've always heard about sex throughout the ages, and this is something that needs to be healed. Very
Yeah.
often we start by healing, okay, other things that are very, very important, like, for example, the relationship with our parents, parental disapproval, and all of this. And those things need to be healed, yes. But eventually, healing will never be complete until we heal uh, sex and and and, and sex and money, which are the two big issues in life. The two big issues that drive people nuts. And both of them has to do with desire.
Right.
When we are in physical life, we desire more money because it brings us power and all of that, and we desire more sex. So sex and money are two things that, even when we will have dealt with all the other issues in our life, eventually we will have to uh, deal with sex and money and heal that one. And
Yes.
yeah.
So we have
So,
We have Miguel Souza. He's in Portugal,
okay.
and he said Tantra deals mainly with the sex chakras and sexual energy. He's asking that question. Tantra deals mainly with the sex chakra and sexual energy.
Not mainly, it's part of it. Tantra, the main thing with Tantra, it's like the vision of the two primary forces in the universe, and learning to honor them, the feminine and the masculine. Both as men and as women, we both have sexual energy, female energy, or female aspects, and masculine aspects. Now, if we are a man, probably not always, but probably will have more uh, masculine energy, and if we are a woman, we will probably have more feminine energy. And we need to harmonize this masculine and feminine energy within ourselves in order, as a result of that, to have a more loving and more respecting and honoring relationship with the other, person when we are in relationships. And doesn't matter if it's just two men or two women or whatever. All forms of relationship nowadays are accepted and as happily, and it's simply learning to honor who we are with and honoring the relationships that we create. Now, sexual energy is part of that, of course, but it's not the only thing. It's not even the main thing. When we think about the sexual dance, we call it, the sexual encounter of two beings that are in a relationship. The moment, say the relationship happens 24 hours a day, 24/7, right? When we are in a relationship, we are constantly in a relationship. Well, that relationship is there. How much is sex a part of that? It's like, we are maybe 1 hour a day, if we are fortunate, maybe 1 hour a week, maybe an hour a month, maybe 15 minutes a month, or 50 minutes every 6 months, or who knows. It's like,
Or maybe 3 4 months period and no sex, no nothing, or 6 months
exactly,
or to a year.
exactly. So sex is a big part of it. Yes, it's important, because when the masculine and the feminine come together, and in intimacy, then sexual energy appears, right? That's what, in a sense, that's what brings us together when we want to experience intimacy, when we want to surrender into being connected on all levels, because we can be connected on the mind, on a mental level, on an emotional level. We can you know, be doing our work, each one in their own job, and in thought we'll be thinking about the other person. But the moment of intimacy, when we come together and have sex, that's when all the levels of energy come together, right? So the body, the sexual energy, all of the energy, the heart, the feelings, the love, the the awareness, if we are supposedly doing conscious sex, um, even spiritually, if we know how to access that level as well and create that harmony on that level as well. So, and that's the important part of sexuality. That uh, like that interaction, that coming together, that intimacy is only complete when it's also sexual. Otherwise, it's still happening, but it's not complete. That's the importance of sexual energy. And since it's such a powerful energy, when we really come together and offer what we can offer to the other person, also on that sexual level, it becomes hugely, hugely powerful, especially when we learn to not only connect, but stay in that energy, not rush it towards anything, to fulfillment or ejaculation or orgasm. Just breathe into it and let it happen, and share and let it expand throughout the body. And then, eventually, and this is part of what we learn in Tantra, how to deal with that sexual energy when we are together, when we are in intimacy, and see what happens from there. How eventually the heart opens and we get into this feeling of deep love and sacredness, and then consciousness expand, and eventually it becomes spiritual. And this is when we are finally embracing the whole of the universe, because, as I said before, on a macrocosmic level, this encounter, this coming together on masculine and the feminine, is happening all over the universe. The dance is the sun is dancing with the moon, with the earth, and it's happening all the time. So why not participate on this and experience the glory of life on all levels? So that's the importance that sex has. But it's like I would say it's a good um, to learn to access sexual energy and be able to use it for healing and for greater intimacy and for creating sacred spaces between oneself and one's lover. All of that is very, very necessary, very important. But it's not the only thing. Eventually it's like the whole of the universe. So
He also make another question. He asked another question. He said, "Can you explain the pillars of Tantra?" And he said, "I'm an energy coach and I use energy to unlock potential, but I don't put too much focus on the sex chakra." Thank you for the interview, Gloria, and thank you for the guest. So can you explain to him the pillars of the Tantra?
right. Well, a little bit of what I've said. Yes, it's like uh, when say, for example, with the chakras, each chakra corresponds to an aspect of life. So then there is survival, base chakra, sexuality, second chakra, personal power, third chakra, love, fourth chakra, expression and communication, fifth chakra, vision and perception and consciousness, essentially sixth chakra, connection to the universe, spirituality, seventh chakra. So um, in the tantric path, what we learn to do is to uh, uh, activate and awaken all those energy. So in each one of the chakras, so for all the chakras to be fully alive and vibrating with energy, and so on. And then initially, it can be very useful to do this individually. So we become used to it. We train ourselves to open the chakras, to experience energy, open the heart and expand consciousness, all of that. And then when we learn to do that individually, and that is in Tantra is called White Tantra. White Tantra are all the practices that we do by ourselves, you know. So we learn to like deal with all the aspects of our being, the ones that relate to, that correspond to each one of the chakras. And then it's easier when we are together with another person to do this together, you know. So everything is Tantra. White Tantra is fantastic. I think it's even necessary, you know, to,
Yes.
yeah, it's very necessary, very important to learn to deal with energy and deal with desire and open the heart and expand consciousness. Very, very important, you know.
That's
But
the one I did in Mexico. I didn't do
uh,
the red tantra. I did the white and a little bit of pink rose
yes,
tantra.
yes.
Yes.
So then, then red tantra that you mentioned is when we do it with another person. So the practices, and needn't be, it doesn't have to be sex. It can be other types of practices. You know, connecting by looking each other in the eyes, eye gazing exercises, and connecting from the heart and connecting from the sexual energy as well, without there being just by feeling the energy and so on and so forth. So there are many practices like that. In White Tantra, we learn to deal with the energy, you know. So you know when the energy appears, or you know how to expand it, you know how to um, elevate it, you know, to how to transmute it. This training is very necessary for red tantra, because when we come into a sexual connection with another person, the energy is so strong, so powerful, the desire, the pleasure, the connection with pleasure, that if we don't have a lot of training in dealing with the energy, then we can easily get lost, and then it's no longer tantra. You know, it's okay, an interesting, powerful sexual experience, nothing wrong with that, beautiful in fact, but it's not what we can call tantric sex, which is a lot more fulfilling. And so that would be red tantra. So red tantra is the practice in twos, where uh, when we are focused a lot more on the sexual energy, when we are focused a lot more on the love, the experience of love, and even spirituality, not so much the sexual energy, even though that will be part of it, possibly, then that is called, as you mentioned, pink tantra. You know, so I think in a good tradition of tantra, good lineage, I think it would be important to practice with a little bit of all. You know, maybe white tantra is very good to start with, and then experience some pink tantra, and then eventually some red tantra. But there are no rules. You know, tantra is very free in that way. You know, you can start by red tantra, and because maybe that's what attracts you, that's what, no, I want to learn to be a good lover, you know, so I want to have fantastic tantric sex. Okay, that's great. Most people become involved or interested in tantra for that reason. In fact, more men than women. You know, that women are more interested perhaps in connecting, learning tantra because they want to have deeper experiences of communion with their man, or when they have a relationship, to for it to be a more heart opening experience, rather than so sexual or genital, so. And men tend to feel, oh, I want to become a good lover, I want to learn tantric sex. But like everything, sometimes what first attracts you to something, later on you start discovering other things, and this is part of the beauty of tantra. Sometimes you feel, okay, as a man, as a guy, I want to become a good lover, a fantastic sex performer, and you feel attracted to tantra because of that. Then you start discovering that tantric sex is a lot more fulfilling, it's a lot more broad, it's a lot more life enhancing, it's a lot more powerful than just a good a good sexual experiences, however good it might be. So it's like everything. Sometimes tantra doesn't matter where you start. With tantra, you can start. We were mentioning before, you can start because you want to heal. You want to
Yes.
heal issues around your sexuality, and maybe if a woman has been hurt or raped or whatever, and a guy doesn't feel good about his body or his performance, or he feels, when he's in a relationship with a woman, he can only handle a certain level of intimacy and then needs to run away because he can't cope with the fears that might come up for any man in deep intimacy. So
That also creates a lot of anxiety in people. they
yeah,
they cannot go like in peace. I would say in peace to have a relation, an intimate relation with a woman, or with a man,
yeah,
because we have a lot of backgrounds and different backgrounds
yeah,
with different things that they told us. So when you go to intimacy, some people don't know. And I remember growing up, I never saw my father and my mother sitting down and say, this is the way to do it, or this. No, it's just like intuitive, in like intuition. Like, okay,
yeah,
I think it's like this way, and then you go and you learn over the years. But a lot of people get into, like, they don't know. They started like everybody else. No, there's no school, there's no books to say this is the right way or the wrong way to have an intimacy relationship with someone.
yeah, right. And the thing is, when tantra can be experienced on many different levels. On a sexual level, then it becomes more powerful when it's not only uh, sexual, but also energy in all of the body. And then when the emotions and the heart level comes in, the feeling of love, it's a deeper level of tantra. Then when consciousness is involved, is even deeper, and eventually spirituality even deeper. So so eventually the deepest level of tantra would be when all of these levels are involved in an experience, in an encounter, in a coming together with another person. So you have all the different levels, the feeling level, the consciousness level, spiritual level, sexual level, all of those levels, and then it becomes incredibly deep. So and very powerful. But so when one talks about tantra, it doesn't matter where one starts, but gradually, if one goes deeper and deeper and deeper into tantra, then eventually one starts really realizing the full potential of tantra and where it can take you. you know and so the deepest level of tantra is always in twos, you know because one can start with white tantra, practicing with oneself, and when one opens up to a tantric partner, or someone to share a tantric experience, it's going to be only on a sexual level and energy level. Then eventually the feeling level comes in and all the other levels, then it becomes huge. And so the deepest level of tantric practice is always in twos, even though one can start in a different way. Sometimes tantra is associated with having many partners. Yeah, I'm not saying not, but it's not the deepest level of tantra. It doesn't. But that's why there's no uh, in Tantra, there aren't any morals as such. There is like the knowledge and the awareness of what works, and use it, work with it, and it doesn't matter where you start, how you start or where you start. The thing is that as you go deeper, then you will discover the deeper levels of Tantra. And the deepest is always in twos. So, and that's very beautiful about Tantra, the thing that it's always like the however whatever someone might think about Tantra, it's like it really reinforces the belief of in a sense, a traditional belief that it is two people coming together in intimacy that are going to create this beautiful energy. The encounter of the masculine and the feminine will always generate light and aliveness. And the more one values that and honors that, the more that will become powerful, and it'll bring huge blessings to our lives, And the first blessed ones will be the people that are creating that intimacy and that communion, though they will be the first blessed, and then the children, the neighbors, and the whole of the world eventually, but the first blessed will be them. So it's really beautiful. It's like this thing of the masculine and the feminine, knowing when that person from Portugal asked about the pillars of Tantra, it's got to do with that. It's like bringing the masculine and the feminine in closeness, in intimacy, and deep surrender to each other, so that each one can offer what they really have to offer, and then generate the light which will be huge, which will bring huge blessings to everyone. This is the whole idea.
Okay, I have another question after this. What is
Yeah.
the connection about Kundalini and Tantra?
Yes. Well, when sexual energy becomes very powerful, very often the Kundalini energy gets activated. The Kundalini energy is the basic energy. It's the most powerful form of energy in the body. And it normally resides in the base of the spine. And the image that is used very often is like a coil.
Spiral.
Like a spiral, yeah. And like a serpent that is coiled, like sleeping. And then when that energy activates, then the head of the serpent begins to rise, And that energy is called Kundalini. Now, Kundalini is the most powerful form of energy, and it's the most feminine part of energy, the most feminine aspect of energy. When we talk in Tantra, we always use the word Shiva, which is a Hindu divinity, yes, but it also represents the essence, the masculine essence, the masculine principle. And it's the essence of Shiva, of the masculine, is consciousness. And then there is Shakti, which is the female principle, and the essence of Shakti is energy. So when we work with energy is always the feminine, Masculine is the consciousness, the feminine is energy. And Kundalini energy, Shakti Kundalini, is the basic and the most powerful form of feminine energy. So it's fantastic when we can activate that. And obviously in the Hindu tradition, there is something called Kundalini yoga, but sometimes not necessarily by doing Kundalini yoga, sometimes even in a very powerful, prolonged sexual experience, Kundalini can activate it. Not always. The fact that sexual energy becomes very powerful, and when we work, say, for example, in Tantra, expanding it throughout the body and all of that, doesn't mean to say that that is the Kundalini that is rising, you know. Sometimes, yes, as a result of the powerful um, sexual energy that's been activated, then Kundalini will also begin to rise, but not always. It's not the same thing. So that's what I would say about Kundalini. Now, as I mentioned, you know, there is something called Kundalini yoga, where the exercises and the practices normally that I used with the intention of activate the Kundalini energy.
Okay, do you remember the last time you and me we met in Kia show that we talk about the feminine and the feminine, the masculine energy in men and women? Because some, like you said in the beginning, if you are a woman, you have to have more feminine energy, and if you are a man, you have to have masculine energy. In some cases, the men have more feminine
Mm.
energy than masculine energy, or the women have more masculine energy than feminine energy. And I love that part when we talk about, I want you to talk about again about that, because we have a
Okay.
misconception about that. And we think like some men they get frustrated because they think they have a soft side, and it's not like they have the soft side. It just needs to a complement when maybe with another women that have that masculine energy.
Yes. Yeah. Well, very often nowadays it's quite common to see men with a very soft side and women with a very strong, powerful, domineering side. And so the thing that's got to do a lot with old paradigms and present day paradigms, right? Throughout centuries and centuries in what is called the patriarchy, um, men were embodiment of the masculine, and to be a man meant that one had to be purely masculine, and it was looked down upon when a man had feelings or cried or whatever, because it was too feminine. A man should be strong and shouldn't cry and blah blah blah, you know.
Right.
And women, on the other hand, they were polarized into this feminine side. And each, so both in human relationships, men were very, very masculine and women were very feminine, but in a very limited way, you know. So men were very conditioned to be masculine in a certain way and women to be feminine in a certain way. That doesn't mean to say that the men were really masculine. They were masculine based on programming and conditioning, and women
Right.
feminine in the same way. So obviously, since the 1950s and 60s, I would say, uh, especially in the more developed world, as we call it, women, especially after the Second World War, they started perceiving that because during the war they had to work producing guns and so on and so forth, and working in the foundries, and you know, doing very masculine work. And then they, obviously there was a process of empowerment, and when the Second World War finished, after a period of reconstruction and all of that, then women started feeling like a need to become more independent, because the basis of the relationship was codependency. And in a sense, men were kind of better well off than women, you know, because men were the ones that earned the money and they were the providers. So women depended economically on men, and
Yes.
that disempowered them a lot, So, okay, this happened throughout history for thousands of years, and now it was time for that to end. And was women that started like battling and working towards something new, And the first thing was, okay, they needed to become more powerful because the men were powerful. They they weren't powerful. Normally, a woman looked for a powerful man, a rich, powerful man, in order to experience the power. She didn't experience it for herself. She experienced it through the guy that she was married, the man
Yes.
she was married to. And that's why they looked for, good parties, like a rich, wealthy, powerful man. And so then women started feeling like the need to become more independent. So from codependency and dependency, we got into the new paradigm where we are now, basically, which is independence, right? Instead of codependency, independence. Where, but in order to become powerful, what happened? Because always power was seen as in the masculine way, then women, in order to become powerful, they started becoming more masculine, being domineering, being bossy, being this, being authoritarian, whatever, And so women started becoming developing a lot more their masculine side. And obviously the macho man of always didn't have much reason to exist because a powerful woman wouldn't buy into a macho man anymore,
No, no,
So
no.
this is not something that would impress the lady. So then what happens? Men started developing their feminine side, started getting in touch with their feminine side. So women became more masculine and men became more feminine. And now we are a little bit like this. But now, obviously, everything changes. And now, after many, many years in this dynamic of independence, women are and have been already for the last decade at least, or more, um, realizing and getting in touch with the power that they have, not from their masculine side, but from their feminine side. And this is the process right now. Women are getting in touch with the feminine power, and how beautiful that feminine power is. So a woman, in order to be powerful in life and in society, doesn't have to become masculine. She can be powerful being feminine, deeply feminine. So now we are into this new paradigm where there is a lot more space for the feminine power to express itself, to be part of the world, to offer what it has to offer. And it's even necessary, because with the supremacy of the masculine energy, the way we're going right now, the world is going right now, we are going to suicide. We succumb. It's like through everything, like contaminating the planet and not looking after Mother Earth and the wars and all that's happening in the world. So something's got to change. And normally now is the time when it's the feminine energy is what's going to change the world, what will bring the next evolutionary step, and will bring us into the new paradigm. And the men, what we need to do is to get in touch with their feminine side, but not get lost there. The same as a woman doesn't have to
Right.
get lost in her masculine side. So to acknowledge our feminine side and be in touch, and that will help us as men understand women a lot more, like the emotional depth of the feminine in every woman, and will help women understand men a lot more at the same time. So we can only we can only learn, we can only uh, become better from all of this transformation, you know, and it's a necessary transformation. So I think now the present paradigm of independence is also in a moment of change, and we are gradually coming into interdependency, right? So no, and interdependency, basically what it means is that l- being able to offer what we best can offer to the other and to the world, you know, however or whoever we are, you know. It's like nowadays, because of all these changes as well, it's like there are a lot of men who have more feminine, very often a lot of men have more feminine, their sexual essence is more feminine than masculine, what you mentioned before, you know. And for uh, a lot of women the opposite, you know, and this is okay, you know. And as you said, which we had talked on that occasion, very often it is quite common these days in a relationship for for men very often to be on the feminine side in the relate, to occupy like more of that feminine side, and the woman to occupy more of the masculine side. Now in a tantric path, uh, it's very interesting always to question that, you know, like to look into that personally. And if one is in a relationship where one can talk about these things with one's partner, to check that out, see how it is, you know. Are you happy with that? Yeah, I'm happy to be a very masculine woman since you are not dealing with the masculine, then I'll do it and I feel happy to do that. And if he feels happy being more feminine, great, carry on until maybe something you need, a need for change again, or not. Maybe you'll be forever comfortable in that. It doesn't matter where it is, where one is. There isn't a has and a hasn't, you know. It has to be this way and it shouldn't be that way. There isn't that in Tantra, you know. It's just the awareness of where one is, you know. Now, very often in a tantric path, that polarization, as it were, begins to happen again, you know, in the degree that a man starts working on his masculine side, his Shiva, and embodies consciousness and acts and uh, relates more and more from his masculine side, he will love being Shiva in life, you know, and being, uh, you know, like the the awareness, you know, of something, rather than being the energy and the movement. The female aspect, Shakti, is the energy, the light, the movement, you know. And very often a man who's very in his masculine side will adore seeing and meditating and honoring the movement and the light in her Shakti, you know. And this will take her more into her feminine side even more. So she will be a more powerful embodiment and offering of Shakti of the female, and that will lead him in turn to be more on the masculine side and
But in some
embody
cases,
and offer.
in some cases, Ronald, when the women is so masculine, or the women have the energy, the masculine energy higher than the feminine, they tends to have men that they feel insecure, and then what they like to do is to, like shut that woman down, and
Yes,
and and
yes,
not let her shine, because he's so insecure about his own way that he don't know how to deal with that Shakti, or that feminine energy. He
yes.
don't know what to deal with it.
Well, the thing is, in patriarchy, in the patriarchy of thousands of years, why was feminine sexuality so repressed? I mean, up to the extent of even burning them in the stakes as witches, you know,
Yes, yes.
when they dared to be sexual, you know, or dared to be the goddesses that they were, you know, or healers or whatever. They were called witches and burned in the stakes, you know. So, uh, So why is that? You know, basically, the masculine, the man in this old conditioning is afraid of the the female power. Is afraid, you know, and therefore they, you know, this is a very ancient thing, and in tantra, a man has to work through that, you know, be able to honor and become fascinated by the by what Shakti is, the beauty of the and the power and the shine of the female light, you know. And but this is not easy because for any man, the conditioning that man has is that women are subservient, that they depend, that they are weak and emotional and depend on you. And when you are with a woman who doesn't depend on you, it's you start discovering in fact that you depend more on her than she depends on you. It's kind of scary and frightening because you're forced to go beyond your boundaries, you know, beyond go you're forced to go beyond your comfort zone, you know. And but well, it's a learning experience. This is where we are right now, and if it's
Yes.
happening right now in the world, it's because women want it and men want it, even if they're not conscious of it. Men also want it because us guys, we are sick of having to be the tough guys who can never feel, who can't cry, who can't be emotional about things, who can't be loving, and so on and so forth. We always have to be tough and strong and being there, struggling to, because we are the providers. And, you know,
Yes.
men, we are sick and tired of that. Now we want to be more relaxed in life, you know, and not have to be the tough ones all the time. And for some women, you know, it's the opposite. Some women love to get in touch with that tough masculine side and go through a period of enjoying that, you know. And fair enough, great, you know. So here we are in this moment of great change. Yeah, yeah. But you know what you mentioned before is in a relationship, very often, as men and women, we will tend to attract a partner that fits with our needs, fits with. So if a man is lacking of a strong masculine side, he will probably attract a woman that has a strong masculine side because
Exactly.
somebody has to offer the embody and offer the masculine, and somebody has to embody and offer the feminine, and the other way around as well. You know, a woman, if she has a very strong masculine side, she will probably attract into her life to come into relationship with a man that has a feminine side, so, because somebody has to offer the feminine if she doesn't, you know. And in a from a tantric in a tantric path or from a tantric relationship point of view, these are things that are part of the attraction, the fascination that we can have. It's not only the spirit that that person embodies, but also the embodiment and the offering of the masculine and the feminine that each other has, and how that fits in with each other, you know. And that is part of the fascination. Now, in a tantric path, very often it becomes clearer, and the consciousness that one accesses through the practice of Tantra allows us to begin to see things that before we weren't aware of, obviously, and it's part of the healing. And then, you know, in a questioning, say, well, am I happy with that? Or I think I would be a lot happier becoming more powerful as in my masculine side, in my inner Shiva, you know, and I would like to work on that, you know. And maybe if this is shared with the other person, she might be very happy as well, because maybe, okay, she grew into uh, becoming very masculine because she thought it was the only way of really surviving in a dignified way in life. And but deep down, she's really sick of it. She's sick and tired of it, you know, and so on and so forth. So these are things that kind of change with time as well, especially when one works on these issues and when we are aware of them, for example, like in a tantric path. Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow, we got it for 1 hour and 14 minutes today. And before we go, Miguel Sousa said, he said, I see mainly in my work, the men have more feminine energy and women more masculine energy. And it's great when we can awaken in the other energy of them. I had till I had till some years now more feminine energy, and this last year I am awakening more and more my masculine energy. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Miguel, for all the questions and for
Yeah.
this input. Thank you so much. So, Ronald, we just have to go, and I know
Okay.
this is not gonna be the last time we're gonna come, because I really want to come more time with you so we can go deeper and deeper each time,
Yes.
like peel the onion onto the roots, and have more conversation like this. So thank you so much to be in the bilingual show, the Gloria, and I'm so happy to have you today.
Thank you, Gloria. Yes, and just for you to know, I'm always open to doing more interviews whenever you want. It's always a pleasure. Now that we've done quite a few interviews together, it's always nice to talk. And as you say, go deeper and deeper and peel layers of the onion and get into mm, as deeper and deeper in connection with the essence of what all of this is about. Yeah, which is great. So I'm always open to that, and it's a real pleasure. And
Thank
thank
you.
you ever so much for inviting me, as always. Yes,
Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you today here. So I'm
thank you.
gonna close the show, and if you have to go, I understand. If you wait for me, it will be also very good. So it's up
I
to you.
I wait a little bit. Yeah,
All
great.
right. Thank you so
Okay.
much. All right.
Thank you,
Okay.
Gloria.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Well, this is the very first show of this year in English, and I'm so happy because it was a right beginning, a good beginning, talking about tantra, talking about the intimacy, our energy, the one that's gonna help us to heal a lot. Is a powerful energy, and having conscious. Sexual conscious, having sex with people, being conscious of what you're doing, and understanding the concept of honoring your body and honoring the energy of your body and the energy and the body of others. So thank you so much to be in the bilingual show, The Gloria. Next Wednesday, I'm going to come back at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And thank you so much for your support. And this is Gloria Goldberg, the founder and the creator of the podcast, The Bilingual Show, The Gloria, and also the Bilingual Show, The Gloria. There's is all Wednesdays, 8 p.m. is en español, no, 8 a.m. en español, and 3 p.m. in English. So thank you so much, everybody, to be here with me. And let's start the show. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.